Hey guys, Papa Pete here, and I just got done reading on Facebook that they've released the next 10 games that's going to be on the Genesis Mini that's going to be released this fall by Sega. Well, back about 30 years ago when the Genesis first came out, that was my first system that I bought after I was done school, so I'll call it my first system as an adult. So it's really pretty special to me. Even though it's not one that I collect for a lot right now, I still have my old Genesis and I still have a lot of the games. So I've been really interested in watching what these different games on the system were going to be. Well, I found the next 10 really interesting with a lot of great choices, but there's still a few on there that aren't listed yet that I'd like to see, so I thought I'd make a video showing you the top 5 Genesis games that I'd like to see on this fall's Genesis Mini. Anyway, stick around, I'll share those 5 games with you.
Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. Papa Pete, the old ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
I'm going to start off my list of the top 5 games with a couple of honorable mentions. Now remember, I got this back in 1992. I bought my first Genesis. And back in those days, of course, there was a huge competition between Super Nintendo and Genesis. I had just finished university, so this was going to be my first big purchase as an adult. And I decided that I really was going to get what I was going to play the most. And at that time, what I really liked playing the most were sports games. And the general consensus back in those days was that sports games were better on the Genesis than they were the Super Nintendo. Is it always true? Not necessarily, but in a lot of cases it was. So I bought a Genesis. And for honorable mentions, I have to mention these 2 games first, which would be really good additions for the Genesis Mini coming out this fall. My first honorable mention is PGA Tour Golf 2. It's a great golf game, very easy to play, but it still has it's got 5 different courses and all the different features that you want in a golf game. Back in its time, the graphics were phenomenal. The effects such as the wind and hitting your shot, the physics of the game were second to none. I really enjoyed playing this game, spent lots of hours, and we used to play it as groups, and it was just an amazing game. It would still be a good addition today. And another sports game that I'd love to add is International Soccer from FIFA. EA Sports Special first soccer game. It was really an amazing game. It had a real fluid motion. It was a lot of fun to play. Included all the different international teams from the World Cup back in the day, and I think quite a few more than that actually. And it also took advantage of the 4-player tap that you could set it up and play with 4 players, and we did that quite a bit actually. So it was a lot of fun. I have to give it an honorable mention as well on the Genesis Mini. So I'm going to count these backwards in order of the games that I put on there most, and this game is number 5. It's sort of an unusual game because I didn't play this when I had my Genesis at the very first. I've only had this game about 3 years. And I tell you where I saw it first was on a Pat the NES Punk video, and I thought it was a really well-made video. I really enjoyed it. And that game is Elysia Dragoon. When I saw that game, I checked it out. It seemed like it was a really pricey game. And I happened to go on eBay to check it, and I found somebody that had a spelling error in the title, and I got it for a song. I got it for like $6. Cartridge works great, got the box, don't know the manual, but still. Now, Elysia Dragoon is a very unique type of game where Elysia shoots lightning bolts from her fingers and such and tries to take out the enemies. And it's like a platformer or adventure game. Very similar to a lot of the other games in Genesis at the time, but it's very fluid and it's a lot of fun to play. Now, number 4 is a game that I played a lot in the arcade. I also played a lot on MAME later on. I just absolutely love it. So it's available on both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. The versions are quite a bit different, actually, and this one might not be quite as loyal to the arcade version, but it's still a lot of fun to play and will make a great addition to the Genesis Mini. And that's Sunset Riders. It's a great arcade-style shooter that's a ton of fun. As you play through the levels, it's just no thinking, shooting everything in sight, and basically just makes for a lot of fun. Be a great addition to the Genesis Mini. For number 3, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm not going to name one game. I'm going to name a series of games. It was a series of 3 games, actually, which I found to be some of the best ones on the Genesis. I played all 3 of them a ton. I've beaten all 3, and they're just so much fun. And that is the Desert Strike series. In the Desert Strike series, you fly a helicopter in off the coast, and you try to take out different areas, things like satellite launches. You try to take out the enemy base and rescue hostages, and it's just basically a ton of fun to play. It's not too awfully difficult, but it's challenging enough to really keep you coming back time and time again. And after they had this one out for a while, they brought out Jungle Strike, and even later on they brought out Urban Strike, set in the city. Obviously set in the jungle and set in the city. They really are great games to play. If you haven't checked them out, they're not very expensive, and they're really worth your time. So, yeah, I'm cheating a little bit because I don't expect them to put all three, but any one of these three would be great additions to the Genesis Mini. Now, game number 2 was a game I bought after seeing this movie with my wife. She really loved the movie, so I went out and bought the game, and the game is just so much fun to play. It's fluid, it's got beautiful colors, it flows just perfectly, and the music, the soundtrack, is second to none. And that is Aladdin. Most people are familiar with this game. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been announced yet, but maybe there won't be any Disney games. There might be a problem with the licensing and getting it on the Mini and such. But what a great addition that would be as the Disney representative on the Genesis Mini. It's another game as well that was available on both the SNES and the Genesis. And frankly, the Genesis version was just significantly better than the SNES version. Anyway, Aladdin. I'd love to see it added. Alright, it's time for the game that I'd most like to see on the Genesis Mini. Now, I started off this with a couple of honorable mentions from the sports genre. And I told you that, frankly, that was why I bought the Genesis over the SNES, was mostly because the sports games were considered better for it. Well, I had to reserve the top spot for, what else could it be? Being from Canada, I love hockey, and the best hockey game, maybe ever, NHL 94 by EA Sports. I simply love this game. I played it to death. I played complete seasons. I set up all kinds of different rosters. It's just a phenomenal game to play. I remember last year when I went down to Too Many Games, they actually had an NHL 94 tournament. It's such a highly thought of game with great players, and really it's a great era of NHL as well, because it was a high scoring era. It was sort of towards the end of where it started to get real defensive, and it wasn't quite as good for a few years in the late 90s and through 2000s. But in this, you can score, you can play, you can control your man, it's fluid, you actually feel like you can control the players. Some games, some hockey games, don't control all that well. They had everything right with this one. So of all the games on the Genesis that I'd love to see on the Genesis Mini, NHL 94 is number 1. Alright guys, that's it for my picks. I said top 5. I actually think I have 9 games sitting here, but we'll call it top 5 with a couple honorable mentions, and I don't care which one of these 3 get on it. But anyway, let me know what you think you would like to have. Let me know what your favorite games that you'd love to see on the Genesis Mini that haven't been announced yet. Anyway, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time, guys. Take care.
Ass gamer. If you haven't grown up by the age of 50, you don't have to.
You're watching Papa Pete, the old guy gamer.
What the hell?